record now. And okay, evening, Emma. Lovely.
Evening, Jackie. Yeah, nice to be with you.
Emma has is a friend of. We've got a mutual friend, Sashi Radley, marvelous medium, face reader. She does all sorts of things, and she mentioned to me about Emma and what Emma does, and so yeah, I've got Emma Avhede.
Well done, Jackie. Yeah, you did it. You did well.
Emma Avhede, and she's the managing director of HÄLSA Wellbeing. That launched in the organization in 2010. Their ethos is to help people to eat well, feel well, sleep well, and think well. And a major aim of the business is to place you at the heart of your own well-being, simply because we all experience things differently. As well as her interest in all things well-being, Emma has a deep-rooted spirituality and knew from the age of 7 that she could connect with spirit. Her spiritual understanding and intuitive sensitivities continues to help her inform her life choices. When Emma has a rare moment of downtime outside of her well-being business, she does offer mediumship readings by appointment. Emma's professionalism and accuracy has brought comfort to many people during times of grief, loss, and the navigation of life's challenges. Emma is passionate about supporting others with their well-being and has a specialist interest in women's health and menopause. So delighted that you're with us tonight, Emma. This might not be for everyone, but even men, it's good for men to understand about the menopause, isn't it?
It is absolutely, Jackie. Yeah, and there's limited knowledge often in this subject, so it's something that I do like to talk about.
So, yeah, definitely. I think I'm quite lucky in that I probably the only symptom I know that I've got is the hot flushes, and so yeah, I don't know if I'll be able, but I've got a page up that says 30. What was it? 34. 34 symptoms of the menopause, and the top one is the hot flushes. So I thought I'd just start with that, Emma. If you, or anything you want to talk about anyway, you share whatever you think is so important around.
Yeah, well, that's a good place to start, Jackie, because it's, a lot of people think of menopause, and I used to as well, as something that happens to us when we're much older and we get some hot flushes and that's kind of it. But actually, through the work that we do around women's health and my own interest in menopause, and also the wellbeing menopause related programs that we run for organisations and clients across the UK, there's just so much more to it. And you're right, there are actually 34 officially recognised symptoms now. That is the official line, but of course there are many more that are not in that list, which makes it quite difficult for people to pinpoint what's maybe actually happening to them during this transitional period. So lots of different ones, and hot flushes are probably the one that is most well known in the menopause stories.
I never had a hot flush until quite late on, and I'd had a hysterectomy back when I was 37, and so I, for some reason, thought I would never get hot flushes because I'd had the hysterectomy. So it was, and because it was so late, because some people get them quite early on, don't they?
They do. They can get them really early. And what you've just mentioned there, Jackie, as well, is we have what's called surgically induced menopauses or medical menopauses that can happen to women if they have hysterectomies or other types of procedures, or they have cancer journeys. Then they can automatically go into the menopause, which often they're not sure what's happening to them. And unfortunately, although it's getting better in terms of that support medically, it's not always explained that you might experience this once you've had that. So we're seeing much younger ladies going through those symptoms for various different reasons.
Can you help them with it? Can you help with hot flushes?
Lots of things that can be done for symptom management. I mean, hot flushes is something that actually quite a lot of women will experience. But what I find really fascinating, Jackie, is that if you look at certain populations of women, they don't always have the hot flushes. So if we take, for example, women from Japan, when we look at what they're eating and their diet, which I believe is hugely influential in our symptom management, they have a diet that is rich in what we call phytoestrogen type foods. These are foods that mimic the estrogen that our body makes, and they tend to have a lower prevalence of hot flushes in those communities. Similar in South Asian communities as well, because they're eating that kind of food. So diet and nutrition do play a really big role. Hot flushes sit under what we call vasomotor symptoms. So hot flushes, night sweats, you know, when people are waking up and they're absolutely drenched through. Not just, you know, at the moment it's difficult because we have them in very hot weather, aren't we? So it's sometimes difficult to unpick. But I think diet and nutrition definitely plays a part. Lots of other interventions that can be looked at as well to manage the hot flushes.
Yeah. Another thing that someone said to me, because as I drive along with my husband in the car, and where I'm a driver, I'm sat this side, obviously when he's driving, and I'm like this all the time going, and then he goes mad at me because I thought he's gonna hit. And someone said that's a menopause symptom. It can't be, is it?
Well, it'd just be more nervy, be more anxious about it. Yeah, it
Because
is.
my friend said her friend had to give up driving through the menopause because she just couldn't.
Yeah.
Worried. She was so worried all the time in driving.
It's a really good point, Jackie. I actually group symptoms into three different areas. Vasomotor that I've just mentioned, so that's things like the hot flushes and the night sweats. Your physical symptoms, which can be very varied, and there's lots of different ones that can present. But we've also got what we call a psychological symptoms. And within that, you've got cognitive impact, you've got fears and anxieties that can come in. So, you know, I speak to so many women who've never been typically anxious or worried about anything, who are getting into a real tizzy about certain basic life situations that have never bothered them before. So it's quite common to get fears of things, to be anxious, whether that's driving, public speaking, you know, anything that wouldn't have necessarily stressed you out earlier can come to the forefront with those hormonal changes. So yeah, your driving partner is quite common.
If I was driving and someone was next to me doing that, I would be very upset, and he obviously is. Yeah. I mean, I do really try. Says just shut your eyes, and in the end, I did the other day because we were coming back from Hedge End, I think it was. Yeah, and I said, and that's like a 25-minute journey, and so I did just shut my eyes. I can't stand this. It's ridiculous because he's a good driver. I had no reason to be like that at all. Anyway, all is well.
That's good. But it's really common, those hidden anxieties come to the forefront, and that actually it can make it really difficult for women who are in the workplace. You know, that's something that we try and educate around, because all of a sudden we can get a bit nervous about things. We might just lose our confidence a little bit in our roles, and we might find that certain aspects of our job start to present stress, anxiety to us when they haven't done before. And that's a big factor, and really emphasizes the importance of educating people around the menopause and the things that can happen.
It's difficult, like in the workplace, because how can you approach the workplace for them to understand how, you know, it's a huge. There is also the thing that do men have menopause symptoms?
Yeah, well, there is something called the menopause for men. So there is a phase of life, similar time to women actually, that can occur, and they can have these sort of hormonal fluctuations, but often linked to sort of life stages, evaluation of your life, you know, where am I at this stage, all of those feelings. So there is, you know, there is something around that male menopause, but there's also something greatly around educating the men in our lives around, you know, because this is something that can really impact, Jackie, on relationships at home, at work, our roles as mothers, caregivers, workers. You know, if we're having a rough time during our menopause years, the ripple effect of that is huge.
You know, I remember my lovely auntie that sort of, well, she was more like a granny, and she used to have her hair dripping wet, you know, but never ever said that she was having a hot flush. And we wouldn't have known, I know, but I always say now, if I'm having one, I say to people I'm having a hot flush, because yeah, people need to know we're going through that.
Yeah, they do,
Well,
and
they
that
don't need
dialogue.
to know, but
Yeah.
yeah, it just explains why you're sat there like in a, a bit of a state.
I think so. And I think if we educate people, it makes it easier for them to understand what's happening. And then as women or people going through menopause, we feel more open to be able to actually explain what we might be experiencing. So we start to share our own life experiences a little bit. And the dialogue is really shifting, Jackie. You know, now there's a big spotlight on menopause. It's been, you know, up there for the last 2 to 3 years, really, hasn't it, as a big issue. And will probably continue to be that. So there's a lot of noise around it, which is great.
And how did you get into like being a part of this then? Did you start the company?
I started the company in 2010. I'd got a background in human resources and I'd worked overseas in Sweden, which is where the name comes from. HÄLSA is a Swedish word which means health. And my vision originally was to hold people in the workplace and look at balancing out some of those stresses that we see in society. And also try and get the workplace thinking about engagement of their staff, retention, and all of those good things. The menopause bit came a bit later on, Jackie, because going through my own menopause journey, I understood it a bit more. I did a lot of research. I'm not a medic, but I started to do lots of research and found that I was really interested in this. And then we were asked by a client to put in a menopause program, and the rest is history. It's become a huge area of what we do, supporting on that educational piece. You know, we're not going in doing accreditation in companies. We are helping people to understand the journey of menopause and educating them around some key areas. So fast forward this many years, we're still here and developing things and supporting our clients.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
So I've just looked at a few of the other things that are on here. We'll just go through a few, but then I'll come on to your spiritual side as well, because that's really interesting, and how that must be able to help when you've got a client in. Or
Yeah.
do you not cross the line of that? What, it's
Yeah.
one thing or the other?
Yeah, I'm quite boundaried with those things. I do sort of keep that business side separate. However, what I do it, I mean, it's, you know, that intuitive ability makes it really supportive in my business management in terms of what I'm doing, how I'm dealing with clients. And I'm just very discreet about that. And it sort of, it forms part of me, the essence of what we're trying to deliver in the business. So it's kind of this intrinsic part of everything that we're trying to do.
Well, I'm definitely a spiritualist. I mean, I just love going to the spiritual churches. And
Mm.
I think with this, I know, you know, Sashi, our friend, is a spiritualist, medium, as I said at the start. And I just think, you know, someone messaged me the other day, because obviously 4 years ago when I stopped doing the positive living in person, at that time you couldn't do it. So there is the occasion when we do an in-person event, but in general it's been online
Yeah.
since then. But with the spiritual churches, the minute they could start back up again, they started back up. So when someone said to me, you know, I've got a friend who's, you know, quite in a low state, and would like to have some support, I think the spiritual churches are such a support, and that's usually a free will donation or a very minimal charge
Mhm.
anyway. And they're always open to new people going in. They've all, you know, you always get an address where they talk, you know, give you a spiritual talk beforehand, and you can always stay and speak to the medium afterwards. I think it's
Yeah.
lovely. I really do. I love going to the spiritual church. Anyway, we'll go back to this. So number 2 was night sweats. The first one, obviously, hot flashes, and then it says number 2, night sweats, which you did talk about. Is there any more you want to say on night sweats?
Yeah, night sweats, they're really difficult because, you know, you literally, some women are waking up drenched through, changing the bedding continually. And if you have a partner, it really can be quite difficult to engage and sharing a bed with somebody. So they you know, some their hot flushes and their night sweats difficult.
Sorry, you were freezing a couple of times.
I've frozen, haven't I? Yeah, saying I'm unstable. I don't know what to say to that, Jackie.
It could be a symptom.
Symptom, exactly. So yeah, the night sweats are pesky. You know, some women find them really hard, as they do with the hot flushes, because the hot flushes can be quite visible. So you could be out publicly and all of a sudden you've got this, you know, spread across your top area, chest, face, and it can be really embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that obvious for me, but it used to be for my sister, and I would laugh at her because it would just like go whoosh over her. You know, you could see it straight away. And yeah, I think I have been quite lucky, really. I mean, I still get them all the time, but I don't think it's quite as obvious as some people do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the night sweats, yeah, is not something I think I've been lucky there as well. But anyway, go to the next one. Irregular periods.
Yeah.
Mood changes. That's a difficult one for a relationship as well, isn't it?
It is. Mood changes are really difficult. Any of those psychological symptoms I find really challenging for ladies. So that might be, you know, the low mood, irritability, crying for no reason, just feeling really unhappy. And then we talk about loss of libido, which doesn't always just mean in a sexual way, loss of libido for life. So you might lose your, you know, your sort of get up and go for all the things that you used to like doing. We can see a decline in that particularly as estrogen levels drop down. So I think that those psychological aspects are some of the harder ones to manage or understand or unpick, because they're not obvious. You know, people can put a brave face on, can't they? And underneath it, they're feeling terrible.
Yeah. And you can help with that as well.
Yeah, exactly. So there's lots of things that can be done with that. I mean, there's the main medical intervention, as we know, for menopause is HRT, which has had a very bad press in the past due to previous misreporting. But there's some real benefits in terms of these body identical HRTs that are now available. But I also think as well, Jackie, that it's a time of life, and I know this from personal experience, where we really have to look after ourselves. You know, the things that we get away with in our 20s and our 30s, we get into our 40s, 50s, 60s and beyond, we have to take a little bit more care in terms of how we're sleeping, how we are eating, and all of those 4 sort of cornerstones of well-being that we look at in our business are key, and they're important, and they will go some way to managing symptoms. It's not a cure-all. Nothing is a cure-all with the menopause. It's just looking at different aspects that can influence how you are managing your own journey.
Thank you. Let's just go back to that list. So yeah, mood changes, definitely. Breast soreness, decreased libido, as you said, vaginal dryness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a lady, bless her heart, when I was walking the dogs the other day, she said to me about that. And of course, I didn't really know what. Yeah, it's a difficult one. Do you mind talking about that?
No, I don't mind. It's not an easy dog walking conversation, that though, is it, Jackie?
I know, yeah. She asked Joe, my husband, to walk on because she wanted to talk to me. And I know she wouldn't be watching this, so I don't mind saying it. Yeah, and she said about that. And I didn't know what to advise. I mean, literally, it would have just been to go to the doctor because I wouldn't have known what to say.
No, it's
I
a really
didn't know.
common No, it's a common problem. The vagina, basically, our estrogen levels dropping causes dryness in our body, which is why your hair dries out, your eyes dry. You might find you get a dry mouth, your skin can dry, and of course, the vaginal area can dry. But luckily, there's lots that can be done with that. There's, vaginal estrogen is a really good solution for lots of women because lots of women are in real discomfort with vaginal dryness. It's not something to joke about really, because it is very, very stressful for some women, particularly if they have tearing because of it. So vaginal estrogen is great. And again, thinking about our diet and how we're eating, lots of things like that. There's a product called buckthorn oil, which is really good for dry eyiness and vaginal dryness, and it's very natural because we find lots of women want to look at alternative methods. They don't really always want to go down that medical route. So there's quite a lot of good products that we can use like that. But these symptoms are embarrassing, Jackie, aren't they, for people? And especially
Exactly.
in some communities. Yeah, they don't want to talk about it, do you? It's hard.
No, I remember watching Oprah Winfrey one time, and she was talking about sex, and it was real eye opener really, because she said, I used to love it. Well, it's not that she used to, but and like, I was finding that a real eye opener that someone on telly would say, that it's not a bad thing, yeah, she was very open about talking about that.
Which is brilliant. But I mean, here in the UK, we're not great at talking about these kind of things. And,
No.
certain aspects of our communities, we do a lot of work with South Asian ladies. They don't always want to talk about these things, but they are experiencing them. So where possible, if we try give people a voice so that they can have a safe space to be able to just talk about what might be happening to them. And I'm a great believer in a shared experience is really positive.
Oh, absolutely. I remember in Lyndhurst one day, I was talking to this lady. I can't remember what the conversation or how it come to this. And I remember saying to her, oh, Louise Hay, Louise Hay, the author, wonderful woman that wrote over 30 odd books, more than that probably. But she, in one of the CDs that I was listening to at one point, I remember she said, it's easier to talk about sex than it is to talk about money. And this was a conversation around money on some event we'd done in Lyndhurst. And the lady that I was saying it to, she said, well, I wouldn't want to talk about sex or money with anyone.
No,
And
it's
that's the
true though, isn't
English.
it? Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the English way that we are, isn't it?
It is. We're not as open. And interestingly, you mentioned money actually with this, Jackie. We're starting to do some work on the impact of money in your menopause because we're seeing that there's a really high percentage of women who end up considering leaving their jobs, or they actually do leave their job. I think it's the last figures I looked at were 25% think about it and 10% actually do. That's a massive impact financially on women who've, worked for these careers. So the two do kind of come in hand to some extent.
Gosh, yeah. Honestly,
Yeah.
like you say, it is good to air these things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's not something that we talk about.
No.
Headaches,
Yeah,
frequent headaches for some people, or migraine episodes, dipping.
that's right.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I did see the other day this chap on a short video thing. He said something about putting your hand under there and pressing down for 30 seconds, then looking up to the left for 30 seconds and up to the right, and the headache will go. And do you know, when I don't often get a headache, but I did have one the other morning, and I did that and it did go. I don't know if that's,
Interesting.
yeah, but it was
Well,
just so simple to
yeah.
try that without any
Simple tools.
tablets involved.
Yeah, there's so many tools, and because our headaches often come from here, this occipital area of the neck, and we're sat a lot of the time on computers, many of us. It's difficult, but headaches are really common. But the other thing linked to the headaches and in this area is dizziness. So a lot of women presenting quite early on before menopause in their perimenopause period, which is the period leading up to menopause, for those people who don't know. dizziness, tinnitus, ringing in the ears, and actually vertigo type symptoms are extremely common, linked to the decline in estrogen. And that's often not picked up, Jackie, especially when younger women are going for a medical discussion. The link is not always being made between their symptoms relating to hormones and what is presenting for them.
Is there an easy thing around estrogen, a drop in estrogen? Is there something that all of us could do to help with that?
Well, again, the diet's really key. I mean, I think what we have to also remember, and I always say this to all of our people that we reach, is that this is a natural process for women, something that's, you know, always been around. So there is an element of, there is going to be some change here. You're going to navigate this journey in your own unique way, but it isn't, you're not going to be as you were previously, just because of the very nature of how we age and how we go through life. So again, you know, that looking after yourself, but also perhaps being a bit realistic about the fact that you're going to have some navigation to have throughout your journey with it. HRT, some women have real success with HRT. And I would always say, don't dismiss it, look into it, particularly if you are having very debilitating symptoms. You know, some women, Jackie, they're not functional because of their menopause.
Isn't that odd that it would affect some so strongly
Yeah,
and others
everybody's
not
really
so?
unique. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're all unique in their menopause journey. Some women sail through this and they're absolutely glorious, and it's just, you know, and then others have a really tough time, and then others will just have a fluctuation. So it's so unique, and I think it's really important to remember that everybody has a different journey. But I think what is unhelpful sometimes in the workplace, which is something I see, is when you've got a female manager who's sailed through menopause, who might have somebody in their team who's having a particularly difficult time. And what you sometimes get is, well, it didn't impact me. But it's just not helpful.
It's the same as with pregnancy as well.
It is. Yeah.
It is. I experienced that, yeah, for sure. And it's not very good for you, is it? Because like you're feeling really rough anyway, and then you've got someone saying that, like thinking, making you think, well, it's up to you what you think, I know,
Yeah.
but that you're putting it on because of the situation, when it is the most natural thing in the world, I know, but you can obviously have
But
experience.
yeah, you can feel really, really terrible. And the thing is as well that women have got estrogen receptors all over their body, literally all over the body. So if your estrogen levels start to drop down, there's going to be an impact. It's going to be felt physically, emotionally, everything in your body. And I think that, you know, I keep going back to the lifestyle aspects of this, but there's so much that can be done through clever management of diet and nutrition. And, you know, really sort of following those Mediterranean type lifestyle eating, really avoiding things that are going to impact our blood sugar too much,
That's very similar to
because
like the
that is
blue.
a real issue for menopausal ladies.
Oh, you'd frozen again. Sorry, I didn't realise that. um, I was going to say it was similar to the blue zone areas, you know,
Yes.
where people live much longer. There's certain
Yeah.
areas in the world that are called the blue zone areas. And
Yeah.
that, I imagine, is the same as what you're saying with what they eat, etc. is so
Yeah.
important. So yeah, even to look up about the blue zone areas with their diet would be a good thing to know a bit about, I
Yeah,
imagine.
definitely. Yeah, and the low, you know, the blood sugar type diets are really helpful during menopausal years because of the fluctuations that we experience as women in our blood sugar regulation. It can hugely impact our mood, our cognitive function. So I do talk a lot about nutrition when we're running our educational programs, as well as lots of other things that can be done. You know, there's a place for everything.
So I'm going to run through this list because it'd take forever otherwise, but you stop if there's anything desperately you think would be very important to.
Yeah,
So
of
yeah,
course.
recurring UTIs,
Yeah.
so urinary tract infections.
Infections. Yeah. that happens again due to this dryness area, sort of everything drops down a little bit, and we can get recurrent infections because of that. So that those things are all linked, and that again, another distressing symptom, isn't it, for people?
Totally, yeah. Burning mouth. I've not heard of that one. Is
Yeah,
another
again,
potential symptom.
yeah, and these are ones that are not commonly known, so people don't always link them with their menopause journeys.
Oh, so it's good just to run through this, really. But you can easily, but it comes up on medical news today for the 34 symptoms. Changes in taste, sense of taste, stronger flavors during menopause. They might also experience dry mouth, which can lead to a higher risk of developing, oh, I don't know. Would you say that gum disease and cavities? Because you don't want to put fear into.
No, you don't. I think that is quite extreme, that, Jackie. I mean, it can, dental hygiene is really low, when we do see that sometimes, but generally you'll see burning mouth, dry mouth. Some people get thrush type symptoms. They can get funny taste in the mouth, a little bit like if any of you've had pregnancies, you know that you can get like a metallic taste in your mouth. So it's a similar scenario with menopause. You can get the estrogen drop causes kind of a really horrible taste in the mouth for some women.
Yes.
We're painting a really good picture here, aren't we, Jackie?
We are really, aren't we? Yeah. But I mean, you're not going to get all these symptoms, are you? You would just get,
No,
you know, that
probably not.
everyone's different. But yeah. So there's fatigue. So definitely. I mean, self-love, I don't know, does that come up in what you talk to people about, how important it is to love themselves?
We talk about self-care a lot, Jackie, you know, in terms of that, and which is so interlinked, isn't it? And you know, making sure that we do put ourselves first and we focus on loving ourselves, because women naturally can be caregivers in the home. They take a lot of responsibility on. Women of my age, anybody in their 50s, we call us the sandwich generation. So we've often got children that are still at home or just about to go to university, but we might start to see that elderly parent things kicking in as well. So you end up, and we're holding down busy jobs or businesses. So there's a lot of women like me that sit in what we call this sandwich generation. So self-care and self-love often goes out the window, which it shouldn't do, but it does.
It does, yeah, but it is so important. And when I saw that about fatigue, and it says about, you know, if you need a sleep, have a sleep
Yeah.
as much as you can, you know, and that when we talk about self-love, that's the same thing, you know, quite often we feel so tired, but don't give in to it.
Yeah.
But really, if you want to love yourself and be kind to yourself, it is a good thing to have a sleep. Fatigue, so that was number
I
30.
agree.
Yeah. Acne, I'm just going to run through a few, but if there's any, we'll come back. Other digestive changes, joint pain, muscle tension and aches, electric shock sensations, itchiness,
Okay, yeah.
sleep disturbances. I'll get to number 20, difficulty
Yeah.
in concentrating. Yeah. Do you want to go back over any of them?
Yeah, well, I'd like to talk about body aches actually, Jackie, because one thing I do see a lot of is people who have really are experiencing these electric shocks that you mentioned. So these are like sharp jolts that go through the body. They can be in the head, like a zap, or they can go throughout the body, and they're very strange and they can feel very horrible. But muscle aches, joint pain can be debilitating, but often we see that many women will get diagnosed with fibromyalgia or things like that because the symptoms are actually quite similar. So I would always just say to people, if you're having those symptoms and you're in, you know, sort of that age bracket of being perimenopausal, so really anything from your late 30s onwards, you can start to be perimenopausal, that it's worth looking at that and seeing if there's a link with your estrogen levels dropping, because I see a lot of that, like joint pain in the hips. Look after our bone health, because that can be hugely impacted through menopause journeys, and we are putting, you know, we're at risk of osteoporosis, and that's quite common in ladies post-menopause.
Yeah, I had that
So again, the diet.
I had the hysterectomy. that was years ago, 97, I think, in 97. And I broke my leg in the same year. And that was because I didn't take enough calcium.
Yeah.
I wasn't told to take more calcium or anything. Or that's what they said it was anyway, yeah. But yeah, broke both the tibia and fibia. So just by twisting my ankle on the last step of the stairs. So I mean, it wasn't even anything major. So very important. Would you say calcium or?
Calcium, vitamin D, very, very important in terms of diet, supplements, and also exercise as well, Jackie. So things that are, weight-bearing type exercise as well, but also brisk walking, things like that are good for our bone health. But the two sort of things to look for are calcium and vitamin D. And they're going to help, because I think it's early 20s, we actually stop producing bone. We go from producing to maintaining our bones. So the density can shift, and they can get quite brittle quite quickly if we don't look after them. So we see a high prevalence of ladies who are having osteoporosis post-menopause.
So much, isn't there?
Fascinating.
I mean,
It's a fascinating subject.
It is fascinating. Crikey, there's so much to it. I don't know if we ought to do it in two goes, but
Might
anyway,
need another one.
yeah, exactly. In fact, there'll be probably so many questions from this that we might need to do another one, Emma, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I'd love to do that. Yeah.
Because, I think people would love to ask. I bet so much has come up. I mean, the things I'm thinking of while we're talking about this. So that's going to be the same for a lot of people. Memory lapses, hair thinning, brittle nails, weight gain, stress incontinence, dizzy spells, allergies, osteoporosis.
Osteoporosis, yeah, that's the bone issue that I've mentioned. That is quite common, but there's lots that can be done. But it's down to this level of estrogen receptors in our bodies, and everything can be impacted to some extent. And this is why, Jackie, so many people can feel quite terrible at points throughout their menopause journeys.
Because a lot of people are saying it's the ascension symptoms. They are looking very similar to ascension symptoms that everybody would be getting. Yeah, which is an odd thing. But because you could put any of it down to either the menopause or the ascension symptoms.
Change, isn't it? I think that's, if we look at it from that point of view, it's change. And when we go through changes, we have symptoms that are reactive to the change that we're experiencing. And menopause is a little bit like that.
Yes. So we're up to 29 now, which is irregular heartbeat.
Yeah.
So that'd be palpitations, wouldn't it?
Palpitations or like a stopping. So you might feel that your heart beats really quickly, and then it kind of slows a bit, and you're thinking, has my heart stopped? That's quite common.
Tinnitus.
Yeah. Ringing in the ears, yes.
Yeah, ringing in the ears. Humming, clicking, hissing, squealing, and whistling. Yeah. Irritability, hormonal fluctuations, that is. Yeah. Depression, anxiety, panic disorder. Oh, that's it then. That's the 34.
Yeah.
The good news is...
That's the 34 official ones. It's a lot.
The good news is I've got to the end of that list.
I bet you're glad of that, aren't you? It's a big list, isn't it? And this is only 34. There's lots of others that can kick in. And I just quickly want to touch on the cognitive ones, Jackie, because I hear from a lot of women who really struggle with what we call brain fog. So cognitive impairment through the drop in estrogen particularly. And often we'll see that women who've had mums or aunties who've gone through dementia or an Alzheimer's journey, they'll often think that, oh my goodness, this is what's happening to me. And it isn't that, it's the fact that the hormone shifts are causing a temporary cognitive decline. And it's really common. Women can just lose words. They might just forget what they've come into a room for. They might just completely zone out in a meeting. It's really common.
Yeah. I can't, trying to remember names sometimes or things
Yeah,
while I'm talking, and I thought I was very clear before I started talking that I would know what, and then the name completely goes. Wow. So yeah,
yeah.
there is a lot to this, isn't there?
There's a lot to it. And I think that when I mentioned at the beginning, that education piece is key, because the more we know as women or
Yes.
people going through menopause, the better armed we are to have discussions with our doctors, with our medical practitioners, and we can influence the outcomes of what interventions we perhaps put in place. But the more we can help other people, because I have this really nice chart of symptom lists that I put up when I do webinars for people, and I get everybody to look at these lists, and 9 times out of 10, Jackie, people will go, oh my goodness, I did not think that that was to do with the menopause.
Yeah. Yeah, which can be, I guess, quite reassuring, but also to have someone like you to talk to about it.
Yeah,
Because like
exactly.
that
And
lady
it's
the other day, I mean, I didn't know what to say. Yeah. How do people get in touch with you, Emma?
well, through our website, yeah, the details are on there. They can contact us, and there's lots of information on there, and we've got all our social media platforms out there as well. So I'm happy for that to be shared as well, Jackie.
Oh,
So our
lovely. I'll
email is
post.
in, yeah, you can post that through. So we work with lots of we work with organisations mainly, but we do individual work as well.
So that is, I'll just say it's HALSA, Hasler,
So wellbeing.com.
Wellbeing. And you only got to put that in because I put it in just before we started, and that
Yeah.
comes straight
I think
up.
there's only one of us.
Oh yeah, it's an unusual name, but that's quite good in a way because you can't get mixed up with
Yeah,
anyone else, can you?
exactly. Yeah. So, it's a big subject, as we can see, Jackie. There's lots, and also it's changed so much. If you think about conversations years ago, women, are talking about it now. They didn't used to, but also our life expectancy is much longer now. So I'm fascinated with the history of menopause. How it was a hush thing years ago, and now people are really talking about it.
Well, I just wish I'd known when my auntie, because I'd love to
Yeah.
have talked to her about it, for her to probably have someone to speak to about it.
Yeah.
Just before we finish, can we just talk a little bit about your spiritual side
Yeah,
then?
of course. Yeah.
So you love to give spiritual readings.
Yeah, I do. I mean, something I've always known I could do is from about 7. My granddad passed away, and then he spoke to me that evening. So, which was all, I was only young, didn't really understand what was happening, but I remember it vividly. And then when I moved out of my corporate life, started to work in the business, and I was often seeing individual clients, I would have things coming through, but it wasn't always an appropriate way in which to be able to say something to those people. And
Mhm.
actually, I didn't really want to do anything with it. So I knew that I could connect, I knew that I could do it, but I didn't want to do anything with it. And that's the truth. I just wasn't interested. I believed, just wasn't interested. But then my own dad died in 2017. It was quite traumatic, and he was quite young. And I wanted to be able to connect with him. And I thought to myself, I want to be able to do that for other people.
Oh, because you did connect with him?
No, not with him. I find it really hard to connect with him, which is quite common when it's your own family. I think that I have the shutters down, but I wanted to be able to be the person that people could come to if they wanted to connect with their loved ones.
Oh, and that's exactly the same. I mean, my dad, oh, I loved him so much. And he died in 1983. So well, he was an older dad, but it was still, I was very young. And so to lose him, that's what got me on the spiritual path,
Yeah.
So yeah, and I've had so many messages from him, and you don't want to get addicted to that, but it is lovely to, and exactly if it's him or not, because obviously I've had other messages that I think,
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure, but yeah, it's very comforting when that can happen. So yeah, it's great that you can do that, Emma.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of comfort in it, isn't there? Because I think knowing that is there and there is something else helps us with our current life paths as well. And that does bring a lot of comfort to people that I know.
Oh, without a doubt. Well, I know
Yeah.
when bless her, when Sashi did our psychic suppers
Mhm.
and did the face reading, I mean, absolutely, my friend um, Ellie, who I do a Friday morning talk with quite often, she went in to see her, and the first thing she said was, "You're a walk-in." She just from looking at her face, she
Yeah.
said, "You're a walk-in," and it was such clarity for Ellie, because she had no idea that that's what had happened to her like 7 years previous,
Wow.
that she was a walk-in of her higher self. For anyone
Wow.
that, yeah, it's a big subject, but yeah, very interesting and can be very comforting, because it was really good. It really was for Ellie to realise, you know, what had happened to her 7 years before.
Exactly. It's the comfort that's drawn from it. So yeah, it's fascinating.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Emma. And I'm pretty sure we'll do another talk if that's okay, probably in a
That would
couple of
be
weeks'
great.
time.
Yeah, that would be lovely,
Wonderful.
Jackie.
And if
Yeah, thank you
anyone's
for
got
having me.
questions, put them there and I'll ask them to Emma in a couple of weeks'
Yeah,
time.
absolutely happy to field any questions and come back again. Yeah, thanks for having me, Jackie.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
All right, take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks anyone watching.